Hey everybody, thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Kevin Beardsley. I'm the lead product manager for pro trading here at Kraken. And today we have the pleasure of being joined by Yenwen and Nick, the co-founder and head of strategy at Perpetual Protocol. Welcome guys, and thank you for coming today.
Thanks for having
Yeah,
us.
yeah. Thanks for having us.
Cool. So let's jump right in. So personally, I've traded on Perpetual Protocol. I really like it. It's super slick. But the concept of DeFi and perpetual futures, there's like quite a lot loaded into that concept. How would you explain Perpetual Protocol to a non-technical person that you meet maybe on the street or something?
Sure. I guess maybe to start, we probably could need to kind of take a couple of steps back and maybe kind of look at what predates kind of perpetual products. So the first one, I guess, is quite a basic one. You've got your spot markets. You trade kind of one asset for another. So let's take ETH and USDC. Like I just swap one for one, and there's no leverage involved. I guess from there, that kind of evolved into margin trading, where people kind of wanted a little bit more leverage, a little bit more kind of capital efficiency. So you had this kind of case where like you'd borrow ETH or you'd borrow kind of USDC, and you kind of trade on that. The problems, I guess, with that was a little bit expensive, and you kind of needed to hold the underlying asset. And so, in kind of, I believe it was 2018, we had kind of perpetual swap products that got popularized. And the key difference between that and I guess margin trading is it's a purely synthetic product, and so you don't need to own the underlying asset. And so that also means you don't need to borrow it. So it's a lot more capital efficient. You have your leverage, and so it works a lot better. So the key question I guess we normally get from kind of a perpetual product is then if it's a purely synthetic product, like how do you maintain the price? And there's kind of there's kind of one key mechanism effectively. So you have this concept of, I guess, the mark price and the index price. So the mark price is kind of whatever the market is kind of trading at the time. And the index price is a reference to kind of what the spot price or what the price really should be on the spot markets. And how it kind of adjusts for that is there's a funding payment. And what basically happens is kind of if let's say the current market price is too high, then then we want kind of more short sellers to come into the market to kind of push the price back down towards index, and so we have kind of a funding payment where the longs basically pays the shorts, and obviously vice versa. So that's kind of like a perp swap kind of at a very high level in a nutshell. What Perpetual Protocol is effectively we've taken this perpetual swap product, we've put it on XDAI, on Ethereum. So we've taken it out of like a centralized context, we put it into a decentralized context. So all of the goodies that you kind of get with decentralized finance. And then the main kind of innovation that we've done is we've taken effectively an order book model that you currently have on most centralized exchanges, and we've replaced it, I guess, with an AMM or an automated market maker model that's kind of been popularized by Uniswap. And the current one, at least in V1, is using kind of the XYK formula as its pricing mechanism. I guess I'll probably leave it there to start with, unless you kind of want to dive into anything else.
No, that's fantastic. And I think actually they don't get enough credit for it, but I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was BitMEX that invented that funding rate that allowed the entire perpetual category to take off in crypto. It's one of the cooler innovations in the space. So you've referenced like the CeFi, I guess, futures platforms in crypto also have a funding rate. They also have order books. So what would be the main reason that a client would trade on a decentralized platform instead of a centralized exchange?
Um, yeah, that's a good question. So I think the most different thing, of course, the first thing is that there is like native like blockchain or DeFi items that everything is self custody, and you don't really need to trust the central exchange. So everything is transparent. So you can go to like Block Explorer, you can check. I mean, all the transactions. That there is no other people gaming the transaction or the trading. So I think that's of course the first thing. The second thing is that the whole blockchain or like we're building on Ethereum, and then it's actually accessible to everyone. So you don't, of course, like KYC or if you are in like Africa, if you are in like South America or Asia, actually you can access. There is no I mean, even in China, you can access as well. I mean, like, there's no one, I mean, it's unblockable. So I think that's really cool as well for a decentralized system. Yeah. And the third thing personally, I think that's the most important thing is that everything is composable. I mean, on blockchain or on DeFi. So, like we are building this perpetual protocol, this kind of like base layer for everyone who want to get leverage. At the same time, we actually use part of the like Uniswap system that providing the, I mean, kind of like price engine for us. And also, I mean, like other people who are building the EU aggregator, they can actually use us, both us or like other spot exchange, like Uniswap or like other like protocol, and then combine and then provide a structured product to the consumer or to the traders. So I think this is actually why, I mean, like why there are so many people like interested in DeFi or like there is like lots of people think there is a bright future for DeFi. It's just like, I mean, previously, I mean, the banks don't do this. They don't work together. But in DeFi, people work together. Yeah.
That's cool. That's actually one of the more interesting stuff. I've heard previously the decentralized. Everybody can access it, but I love the idea of it being able to build on top of one another, in sort of a very open and collaborative way. That is a really cool innovation. So so maybe this one's for you, Nick. There's a lot of leverage trading platforms out there in the CeFi crypto markets, but also a number emerging in the DeFi as well. And both the CeFi and the DeFi ones are innovating still very aggressively. So, what do you see as Perpetual Protocol's sort of long-term differentiator or its most compelling feature on a sort of forward-looking basis?
I think there's a couple of ways to kind of answer that, and probably I'll kind of dive into the different kind of angles and we can explore. But I think the first one probably is around the team, to be completely honest, and like the team and the vision that kind of drives it. So, like just as a very quick to date, like we've been live for about 7 months now. We've had kind of cumulative trading volumes of around kind of like 20 billion. And in kind of like the decentralized like derivative space, we kind of account for probably 70 to 80% of the market share currently. So it's kind of a testament of kind of the team's ability to execute. And I guess secondly around that is kind of the vision that we have has also kind of driven the product that we've built, which has then kind of seen these results. And we really kind of believe in two major things. The first one is around accessibility. So the ability for kind of anyone to access financial products that are currently not available in the traditional system because they're deemed kind of unsophisticated or unqualified. And then the second point to this is kind of the simplification of overly complex products. Like, how do we explain it in such a way that retail investors can understand it? Like anyone can then access it, and it's simple enough to use. And I think that's really shown in the product. If we kind of then take a look at different lenses, I guess the first one is kind of then CeFi versus DeFi, I guess is kind of a big one. I think Yenwen touched on a point around kind of composability, which I also personally believe is a massive space. So the ability for kind of things to build on top of one another really kind of opens up the design space, and it's also accessible. You suddenly now don't need massive amounts of infrastructure, massive amounts of team and kind of budget in order to kind of open doors and connect to different kind of companies and kind of their infrastructure. It's kind of open for anyone. Anyone can kind of do anything. And I guess the second piece around kind of this CeFi versus DeFi is we have as part of kind of V2 and Curia, which I guess we'll talk about in a bit, we're introducing a concept of private markets. So a lot of kind of the way to kind of list a pair or list a market currently, everything's very permissioned. We're building out capability kind of similar to I guess you'd see Uniswap V2, where anyone can list any asset at any time, and it's kind of then the long tail of assets that we can kind of capture. And I guess the last angle I would look at this is kind of more from a design perspective, I guess. So, and this is kind of central limit order book style exchanges versus kind of AMM style exchanges, of which Perpetual Protocol kind of falls into that. And I think the key difference that we have with kind of central limit order books is we don't need a market maker. We can have fully on-chain liquidity, fully on-chain strategies. And that kind of, again, reduces the barrier to entry, because suddenly teams don't need to kind of pay a lot of money to to find kind of market makers, and it's just a lot easier. So I'd kind of say that there's no one kind of key thing, but I guess like a bunch of these things together, I think will see us kind of maintain the first spot that we have right now.
Awesome. Yeah, and I love that. I love that innovation, has been proven in the marketplace by Uniswap and yourselves and SushiSwap that the AMM model is definitely here to stay for the future. So you referenced a bit, and I don't know which one of you guys to open this up to, so you can choose. But you referenced a bit the difference between CeFi and DeFi. One of the things we're seeing pretty regularly in the news these days is regulators starting to take a closer look at, especially the CeFi products these days. Mm-hmm. Do you think the DeFi platforms will come under the same scrutiny? And if so, are you doing anything to prepare for that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I might not represent like the whole like DeFi ecosystem, but personally, I think, there should be like some like regulation. Within the space. Within DeFi. We build a system. We don't want it to be abused. I think that's at least from our end. But like one thing to note is that we do think that there will be a set of different rules. For DeFi than CeFi or than traditional finance. Why is that? It's because the whole like blockchain system. On Ethereum or on other blockchain, everything is open. Everything is transparent. So you can actually check everything. Every transaction on Perpetual Protocol is open to anyone if you want to take a look. So, if you go back and then take a look at kind of like AML, so they want to have this like AML is because they don't know how the bank handle the client. They suspect that they support some kind of like illegal activity they don't know. So the same as central exchange. But for DeFi, everything is everything we know as a protocol actually is this. It's 100% the same as all our consumer, all our traders, the same as regulators if they want. They just need to build this tracking system, or like they can work with a chain analysis or other people to have this tracking system. Then actually every transaction is under their kind of a review. So I would say it will be a very different kinds of regulation or like the rules that all the DeFi protocol can need to follow, because everything is transparent. Actually, I think that if all the protocols are building things on chain, then it should be kind of like automatically plug in this like review system that regulator can take a look at any time. So that's just what I feel. Yeah.
Cool. I love that idea of being able to see transparently into it. So how can you not know what's happening in the platform? It's really cool leap forward. So Nick, you referenced it before, but can you tell us a little bit about Curie and where you're going with it and when we can expect it in the market?
Sure. With kind of Curie is kind of our V2, and there's kind of, I would say there's maybe 3 general kind of areas that we're looking at as part of it. So the first one, which we talked about before, is kind of like private markets. So how can people who currently stake perp, how do they then kind of create private markets and really the ability to kind of capture that long tail asset? The second one is to do with kind of more efficiency. So in our current design, we actually use Uniswap kind of V2 as a pricing engine, I guess. And the best way to kind of think about it is it's not terribly capital efficient because you effectively place, if I think of an order book, which I guess most people are used to or familiar with, you're kind of placing liquidity or equal amounts of liquidity across the entire order book. And so it like towards kind of the longer tail ends, it doesn't quite make sense because like the likelihood you'll get executed is significantly less. So for us, it was kind of how do we then concentrate this liquidity similar to, I guess, a bell curve, more around kind of the mark price so that we can get more trading volume or just more efficient markets effectively. We're doing this effectively. We're taking out Uniswap V2 and we're basically putting Uniswap V3. And so the innovations that they've done, we're super happy with, and we kind of think it solves a lot of problems. And so that's what we're doing. And then the last piece really is we're still a very young platform, as you can imagine. We're only 7 months old, so there's a lot of kind of features that we still need to build out to kind of get to feature parity before we get to feature parity to kind of centralized exchanges, and users can kind of get the same experience that they currently get. So two major things here really are around cross collateral, allowing kind of multiple different types of collateral to be used. Currently, it's only USDC. And the second piece is around cross margin. So right now, everything is isolated margin, and so it's a little bit more hassle to do, but cross margin should solve that. For timelines, we're not entirely sure yet how things are going to go. We're basically looking at kind of, and we've got this kind of detailed out in a blog post, but effectively there's going to be 4 versions of this kind of V2. And we're hoping to kind of get everything done by the end of the year. But obviously, depending on audits, depending on things will arise, so it may get pushed forward, it may get pushed backwards. We're not entirely sure.
Wow, that's fantastic. I mean, the idea of doing cross margin and cross collateral on a decentralized platform is really forward looking stuff. So Yenwen, maybe one for you. So let's talk a little bit about base layers and the underlying protocols themselves. The current Perpetual Protocol iteration, if I'm not mistaken, is built on XDAI, but the Curie release, you're moving towards Arbitrum. In the broader picture, our clients are being constantly bombarded with, there's so many layer 2s coming out. There's competing EVM layer 1s, and there's also like non-EVM layer 1s, like your Solana is coming out as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about the choice that you made and why you made the choice to move to Arbitrum?
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good question. So for us, I think that one of the constraints that we have for the Curie like V2 is we actually leverage Uniswap V3. So we need to be on the same chain as Uniswap V3. That's a constraint to us. So that's why we want to be on Arbitrum, which like Uniswap announced they will be on there. And also at the same time, they are actually, XDAI is actually an interesting like chain that it actually serves lots of like different purpose. Applications. So like Dark Forest is on XDAI. We are on XDAI, but there are not lots of other like DeFi protocol there. So moving to Arbitrum actually, open up lots of opportunities for us to integrate with other DeFi protocols. So I think that's also the main reason that we want to move to Arbitrum. Yeah. So I think that these 2 reasons. Yeah.
Cool. And maybe a follow-up question for you, Yenwen.
Sure.
It's sort of the similar thing in regular futures trading or spot trading where liquidity begets liquidity. And I think you guys moving along with Uniswap is a pretty good example of that. Where do you see the layer 1, layer 2 space evolving over the next sort of 1 or 2 years? I mean, is it going to be a single protocol that everyone just moves towards, or will it be multi-purpose protocol or like specialized protocols for each type of application? How would you see the ecosystem evolving?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, I think Nick and we have lots of discussion and debate on this. So personally, I believe there will be like single one blockchain, like rules everything. Yeah, that's just my view. I believe that Ethereum actually have that network effect. So because it's been there like for the longest, and a lot. It's like second largest chain by market cap. So a lot of people holds asset. On Ethereum. So I don't think they are going to move easily to other chains. So that's just my personal view, especially with layer 2. It actually increased a lot of my bandwidth and like response time. So yeah, so that's how I feel. So Nick, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I think I hold a slightly different view, I guess. I think it's still a little bit early, but I've always been a little bit kind of more multi-chain in terms of the viewpoint. So I kind of see, at least, like even though these other kind of chains are quite far behind Ethereum, you start to kind of see some unique users that kind of belong to that specific chain. They'll still definitely use Ethereum, but so like Solana's an interesting use case where you kind of have these like high frequency traders or kind of these traders in TradFi who are used to kind of this low latency stuff, moving over to there. You then kind of have Polkadot that's kind of like more like it almost feels like a Chinese like geography in a way, and so that's kind of what I feel like we'll see a little bit of fragmentation. I do agree that I think that ETH and ETH2 especially is still going to be the dominant one. I just think that these chains we'll see, maybe we'll see a lot of traction, maybe we'll see some traction, but I don't think they're going to die off.
Cool. So maybe Nick, we'll stick with you for the next one. Talking about traction and growth of how these chains evolve over time. What do you think it will take to bring the next sort of, 50 million people into DeFi? We've seen huge numbers joining in traditional CeFi institutions. And we've seen a huge explosive growth in DeFi, but what do you think it will take for DeFi to get to sort of that next level of adoption?
Two pieces really. I think the first one is around kind of the user experience, and there's a lot kind of left to be desired here. Like if I talk to kind of the layperson, you're basically saying, hey, go trust your money in a Chrome extension, which kind of if you're not a DeFi native, it kind of blows your mind, right? Like, yeah. and that can't be the case going forward. Like we need better ways of doing this. Like Argent is like a really interesting kind of way of how they're kind of trying to solve it. So you don't need to like write down your seed phrases and pray you never lose them, otherwise all your money's gone. So that's the first piece. The second piece I think is then around like education. Like I think that like people are starting to get it, but there's still quite a steep learning curve. So as the community kind of gets better at educating people about kind of what is DeFi, how does it work, why you should do it, what you should look out for, what are the pitfalls, and you kind of pair that with the user experience, we're going to see even faster growth than what we currently see, I believe.
Yeah, I like some of the names that you pointed out. Like I use Argent myself and really like some of the leaps and bounds they've taken forward in terms of making it a little bit more accessible. And I very much agree with your path forward. So I'll open this one up to either one of you guys. For any of our viewers that are out there that are new to DeFi, but hopefully have a Kraken account and are interested in trying out the Perpetual Protocol for the first time, what do you recommend they do? What are some easy steps that they can take to sort of get their feet wet?
Sure. So yeah, I would take this. So so you can actually go to our website. So perp.fi, perp.fi. So perp.fi, we have actually a learning section. So we actually have a collection of like article, like teach you like what is perp, like how do you trade perp. I mean, what's the risk that you should look after. So I mean, so we do have a section of that. So you can actually go through those first. I think that definitely will be the first thing you should do. The second thing is that if you have any questions, I mean, feel free to join our Discord. So we have this Discord group that lots of people from our community that they can answer your questions. They can point you to the right direction. So definitely, I mean, try these two things. I think that will be very helpful to you. Yep.
Fantastic. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time today. Yenwen and Nick from Perpetual Protocol. We really appreciate it. We really love what you've built, and I'm personally a big fan of it myself. So thank you very much for taking the time to join us today, and we look forward to speaking with you again soon. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. If you enjoyed the conversation, please like and subscribe. We look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you.